Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Seth Dillon. Seth, I really loved how you said that your work in satire is rooted in reality, first and foremost, and that your jokes have to have this foundation of what's real so that you can find the humor in the situation and then augment one portion of that and mock it or make a joke about it. Because in our culture, we've gone off the rails from what's real, and people no longer know what is reality, what's real anymore, and we have so many lost souls out there. I know that you guys, with your headlines being almost so close to the real, have actually started up a parallel site called Not the Bee. Could you tell us a little bit about Not the Bee and why you guys actually started that up?
Not the Bee is our backup plan. I mean, look, when we can't do satire anymore because the world's so crazy, we'll just report the news on Not the Bee. It's a humor-based entertainment site. You know, it's meant to cover those stories that are so absurd you'd think they were satire, but they somehow aren't. So, and there's lots of those. And we found that there were lots of those, especially as we were trying to write satire. We're waking up every morning looking at the headlines and we're like, man, how in the world do we exaggerate this? How do we take it a step further than this? We realized very quickly there was demand for a site that just specifically looked at those real headlines and focused on them and highlighted those. I think that's another way of kind of drawing out the absurdity of the age.
I thought something that would be kind of fun would be to go through some headlines here in Canada that could be called maybe the Canadian Not the Bee, because we have our own share of headlines where you might think it's satire, but it's actually the real news. So if you're open to it, we'll go through a couple headlines and I'll maybe give a little bit of a context, and then you could give us your reaction to that.
Sure.
So as many people probably know, here in Canada, you're not considered a human person until you have been fully born from your mother's womb, from your mother's uterus. And if there's even a little bit of a toe left inside, you're not a human person yet. And because of that, abortion is legal through all 9 months of pregnancy, which is a great tragedy, great human rights abuse right here. And so, knowing that, I'm going to read you this headline, and you tell me what you think about it. This is a real headline from the National Observer from just a little while ago. Quebec's Magpie River becomes first in Canada to be granted legal personhood. This is not satire. This is real news headline.
Wow. Okay. A river is a person. How does that work? But a baby's not in Canada until it's born. That's an example, I think, just a perfect example that illustrates the challenge of doing satire in the 21st century. I mean, I don't think that someone like Chesterton saying the world's become too absurd to be satirized back in 1911 could have envisioned that there would be a time when human babies weren't considered persons, but rivers were, and get all the legal protections of being a person. I don't even know how you give legal protections to a river as being a person. The first thing that comes to mind is what do you do if beavers build a dam in the river and it ceases to be a river? Are they charged with murder?
Yeah, well, welcome to our country. This is where the type of insanity that we have. All right, I'm going to give you another headline, and we're actually honored tonight because we have the person who's the subject of this headline here in the audience, Father Tony Van Hee. So the situation is, in Canada, we have governments putting forward all these bubble zones so that people can't speak in certain places. And they especially target pro-life free speech. Governments can't stand that pro-lifers might actually convince a woman not to abort her child. And so here's a real-life headline. Police charge 83-year-old pro-life priest who was praying too close to Canadian abortion mill. Now this pro-life priest, he was just praying beside this place, and he was too close to the bubble zone. So they slapped him with fines and fees, and he's now going through a whole legal process to actually try to challenge this law and throw it out. What's your comment on this?
Well, a bubble zone sounds pretty harmless, doesn't it? It's just a little bubble, a little tiny bubble zone. The problem is that bubble zones, they start small, right? But what's to stop them from expanding? Before you know it, you're not going to be able to voice your opposition to abortion anywhere. You're not going to be able to pray about it anywhere. If it can be prohibited in one place to prevent shaming and intimidation of people who are going to abortion clinics, then it can be prohibited everywhere and justified with the same reasoning. I think that the irony here is incredible. To charge someone with the crime of intimidation, what do you call it? The effort to jail people who are simply praying, other than intimidation. I mean, I think it's exactly what they're doing, is intimidating people by threatening them with penalties for this stuff. Harsh penalties and restrictive speech laws are designed to intimidate one side into silence and submission. So God bless that man for his bold defiance. You said he's in the audience tonight?
He is in the audience tonight, Father Tony Van Gee. Let's hear it from Father Tony Van Gee. Thanks for that, Seth. All right, a couple more headlines here. So euthanasia was legalized here in Canada in 2016. Prior to this, it had been considered a homicide for a doctor to kill a sick patient. Fast forward 6 years to today, where we now have children's authors writing books to normalize the killing of grandma. Here is a real headline from the Vancouver Sun. A child's view of death with dignity is the focus of Bill Richardson's heartfelt book. What do you think about that? Is this like, this is not the bee, but this is happening right here?
It's deeply disturbing, if you want my opinion. I mean, they want to normalize this stuff so that children grow up thinking it's normal and healthy and good. There's a reason that they're writing books from a child's view on this. It's to get into the heads and hearts of children and try to normalize this stuff. And it's bizarre to me. Instead of focusing on increasing prosperity and improving care and quality of life, we're prepping kids for a world in which the old and the sick and the poor are routinely put down. That's just sad. I'm depressed now. Thank you for depressing me.
Our poor children who have these things forced upon them. If anyone gets a copy of that book, I think the best thing to do would probably be to burn it. Don't give it into the hands of your kids.